Hello everyone, I'm all about villains and welcome to Indigo Park and my video on it. I absolutely adore this game. It hits all the points of a good mascot horror game. Cute mascots? Check. Interesting world gone to hell? Check. Terrifying chase sequence with cool music? Check, check, check. This game has already taken the world by storm and has me up and excited for the next chapter. But sadly we will have to wait. So, to fill the void between releases, I decided to scrape through every single inch of this game to try and determine who the overarching villain will be looming over this whole decrepit park. I mean, come on. You saw the name of this channel, you know what you're getting yourself into. So, without further ado, let's talk villains. Things start off strange right off the bat. The entire park is collapsing, but all the lights are on. Everything seems to be functioning, at least to some level. We're given a critter cuff, but it immediately seems to malfunction. Strange. It isn't until we get to the train area that we start catching glimpses of our first main threat of the chapter, Molly. She stays far away, appearing suddenly and leaving quickly. She follows us the entire time, as we can see later, stalking us from a distance, never getting too close. In the main area of the park, ooh, a cat. This entire update was worth it. In the main area of the park, we run into our second actual threat, Lloyd, a massive lion that takes one look at us and slinks backstage. As we roam around back there, he stalks us from the shadows, only striking at moments where we are cornered. It's creepy how we can't see him. Gameplay-wise, he's probably just not actually there, but it gives us the feel of being stalked like a cat. Finally, at the end, he attacks, but is driven away by some odd noise from our broken critter cuff. More on that in a second. Continuing on after a brief, important detour, we don't actually see Molly or Lloyd again until we get to the landing pad. Once there, we once again see Molly stalking us, but this time she's closer. She's getting more daring. She gets closer and closer until finally at the end of the chapter she attacks. This time our critter cuff can't save us and we're forced to run through the maze of tubes and passageways until we finally get to the end and Molly's threat is ended permanently. So, we have our main threats. What are they exactly? Well, we can see from Molly's defeat that they appear to be flesh and blood creatures, so that triggers animatronic out right away. But more importantly, look at the behavior I described up to this point. When Lloyd is attacking us, he slinks about in the shadows, aggressive and patient, lunging at us when our guard is down. Exactly like how a cat hunts. Molly, meanwhile, stalks us from a distance, never appearing too close or confronting us directly, like a prey animal. I think these creatures are purely animals, genetically engineered to be larger, decorated to resemble their cartoony counterparts, and trained to roam around the park. Now, this sounds like a massive leap, but we can actually confirm this. See, in the recent update that completely redid Chapter 1, they added in a new secret. Near the end of the chapter, we have this little office area. Right off the bat, we get some little glimpses of secrets here and there, folders that seem to be labeled with some sort of experiment number. But that doesn't give us too much immediately. Instead, what we need to look to is these little plushes. Now, interacting with them, they just kind of glow and then stop glowing. It doesn't seem to be too much at the start, but if you go around and find all 5 of them hidden in various little nooks and crannies all around this final area, then you get something interesting. You can go up to the printer in the office, press E, and it gives us a little document. A drawing of Rambley and a bunch of random symbols. Now, I tried looking up these symbols and I couldn't really connect them to anything, but I figured out that there were 6 symbols, so it must translate to the 6 letters in Rambley's name, giving us a small sort of key. It's not complete yet, but if we wander a bit away, closer to where the chapter actually ends, we see another poster with Molly's face on it. Doing the same sort of naming trick, we get another couple of symbols with direct letter translations. So now we have a key to decode a bunch of random symbols. Great. What do we use them on? I didn't mention it up to this point, but there are various codes hidden in graffiti around the park that is easy to miss on your first playthrough. One behind this trash can in Lloyd's area, one on this plane in Molly's area, one on this random wall outside of the park. Oh, this is exciting already. We have 4 sets of symbols, we have to plug them in our key, and what do we get? Gibberish. Or so it seems. You see, there's another little secret. On the shop website, you can find this little area called Terminal, where we can put in lettered codes. Throwing in the random phrases we've now generated yields us 4 pictures. One of them seems to be mascot Lloyd in a cage. We'll talk about that one in a moment. Another 2 seem to be the hallway and the landing pad in the theater with a blood trail in it. seeming to imply Lloyd may have come back and dragged Molly's body all the way back to the stage to feast on. Gross, but not really important. The fourth image, though, we see a lab with a bunch of eggs and an incubator. This proves it. These animals are genetically engineered in the park. I can even tell you exactly where this is happening. You see, there's that little area at the end of the landing pad where Rambley shuts the doors and doesn't let us back there. Why? We don't really know. He just says we don't have access. But what if that was the lab area? What if that's where the animals are being genetically engineered? That's why we're not allowed to go back there, and that would explain why Molly got so aggressive all of a sudden. As we were venturing deeper into the landing pad, we were getting closer and closer to her eggs. She was protecting her nest. We can even confirm they were brought in to replace human mascots. See, throughout the chapter, we go around gathering up these collectibles that are hidden in various corners throughout the park. We can then go to an information kiosk to have Rambley tell us something about them. Most of them are pretty good world building and obvious product placement, but a few of them give us some interesting tidbits. One of them, this mascot head that is given us during a very stressful period, gives us this recording.
Hey Jackson, you hear about the new mascots?
Yeah, think it'll put us out of a job?
I think so. Old sport. And right after we got this damn raccoon costume.
Man, screw this place. I say we get our asses out of here and go straight to Vegas.
There it is, it's confirmed. The mascots were brought in to replace costumed characters, so they wander around the park acting like the characters they represent. So, the enemies from Chapter 1 are genetically grown feral animals that set loose in an abandoned park. Seems simple, right? But we're not done. This goes even deeper. See, these creatures were not just misused, they were abused. And I think that can explain why the park got abandoned in the first place. Whenever Molly kills you, it gives you this really cool death scene with a little hint on the corner. Molly can repeat what she hears. This is weird. It doesn't help you in the chase at all. Molly never attempts to lure us out with her voice. It's just used to add to the horror. But this hint can help us in the lore. See, if she repeats these phrases, then each of these lines comes from somewhere, or someone. Most of these lines are pretty easy. They are coined from rides and advertisements played throughout the park. We can even hear when Molly copies one of them on the train ride.
Oceanic Odyssey currently closed for repairs.
Others, however, seem to come from people we don't know. Some of them are children.
I want to play with the baby!
Some of them are parents.
Don't touch that thing, son.
And most importantly, some of them are employees of the park.
The customer is always right.
Let me set the stage. You're an employee at this park that just watched half your coworkers lose their job to the new animal mascots. Not only that, but now it's your job to take care of these massive animals. You didn't sign up for this. You're angry, bitter. So who do you take it out on? Not the ones in charge, no, that would be too difficult. No, it's the vulnerable animals near. We can hear it clearly in Molly's voice lines.
Get up, you stupid freak. Get back in your cage, bird.
We can see it in the secret photo we got from the codes earlier. A caged Lloyd in some concrete back room. Cage far too small for a lion that size. The abuse goes on for years. The animals become violent. We hear a glitched message from a broken Molly animatronic. That's not Rambley. He hurt Lloyd. I believe this refers to mascot Rambley. Maybe this is another repeated line, likely from a child, who watched two oversized animals fighting. The Rambley mascot must be huge too if he was able to take on an overgrown lion like that. If they're capable of this sort of violence on each other, what would they do to the guests? Not exactly what you'd want for your main attractions. So, how did they fix this? Well, this is where I believe the critter cuff comes into play. Keep in mind it drove Lloyd away when he was attacking us. Some sort of high-pitched sound that seems to hurt him, or at least be annoying enough that he runs away from it. Makes sense, right? Every guest has one of these. It's the best way to keep the animals in check. If they attack or act aggressive, the watch sends out a painfully pitched sound. This is something we use in real life after all. It makes sense we could use it in the game. It seems foolproof. But then again, something went wrong. Somehow these animals got free of their containment, got free of the Watch's power, and went out to take revenge on their abusers. So, how did they get free? What went wrong? Why does the critter cuff not work on Molly? Well, to answer that question, we just have to look at a core character of the park seemingly removed from everything. Salem. We see glimpses of Salem throughout the first few areas of the game. We know they were part of the main cast, but most of the things featuring them now are gone. They have their own train stop, but that seems to be intentionally destroyed. There's a poster knocked off the wall that I have to assume features them. They're the only character not up there after all. No plushies, no action figures, no collectible. The only proper look we have at them is this old movie poster. Just with that we can read their design. Punk aesthetic, the purple colors, the sharp angles. Yep, they're a villain. I have a sixth sense to these sort of things. We don't get a full characterization for them though until the arcade game in Molly's area. The game is straightforward. Go out and rescue Molly. Encounter strange purple squirrels along the way, but otherwise it's smooth sailing. That is until we get to the end. We find Molly, but an instant later, Salem ambushes us. They throw some strange purple potion onto Molly, saying something about how it removes the friendship that keeps them from killing us. There's a final battle. We seemingly defeat or kill Molly before the game glitches out and kicks us out. Immediately, I see similarities with what's happening in the main story and what's happening in the arcade game. In the secret near the start, we see Molly in a cage, mirroring that secret picture we saw with Lloyd. Then, at the final confrontation, Molly is freed, gets broken out of the binding friendship, through some means, immediately attacking us, and in order to avoid dying, we are forced to kill her. The final battle even takes place at a crash site. Calling back to an earlier joke Rambley made about how all her landings are crashes, coincidence? Yeah, that last one probably is. But this gives us connection. There's a lot of parallels here. Salem was the culprit in game, what if they are the culprit outside of it as well? I'll say this is mostly speculation. We never see any sort of mascot Salem like we see with the other characters, or an AI like we see with Rambley. And even if we did, I doubt the animalistic mascots would have the ability to hack into this park's systems. Skunks are smart, but not that smart. However, an AI might. Picture this. An AI Salem is designed as a cartoony adversary to work alongside the Rambley AI that follows us around. They see how the mascots are treated, or maybe just want to cause some chaos, classic villain behavior, and decide to disable the protections, keeping the animals from attacking the humans. They didn't expect the mascots to be so violent, to cause so much destruction, so they try to walk it back, re-enabling the protections against Lloyd at least. But they can't against Molly or the others. That would explain why the pictures of them are destroyed. They tried to re-cage the mascots, so the mascots reacted violently against them. The pieces do fit together really nicely, but I don't have a lot of evidence supporting it. Just the odd way Rambley glitches out in Salem's train section, the way he doesn't even talk about the arcade cabinet at all, even though we get a Rambleberry for him through it, and he talks about that in the collectible screen, and the cameras watching us, wherever we go. We know this is Rambley for most of the game. He specifically points it out during registration. He turns on the webcam and gets a good look at us. Everywhere else in the park, we see these same cameras following us, red lights blinking, usually in areas where Rambley talks with us. But they're also in the backstage area. He said he didn't have eyes back there. So either he's lying, or he doesn't have access. Either he's lying. What do we really know about our little raccoon friend? See, there's several hints and small clues I noticed up to this point that didn't really fit anywhere else. I disregarded them. It's just stylistic decisions, world flavoring. But now, especially with how detailed this game has gotten in the update, I know they're important. Now, this is extreme speculation territory here, but I have an idea that weaves these together into a terrible story looming behind our little raccoon sidekick. Do I believe he's the true evil threat behind all this? No, not really. At least I hope he's not. But I do believe he's the face for one. Let's start off with a question. Why does Rambley hate Lloyd? It is prevalent throughout the entire chapter. Anytime Lloyd is mentioned, Rambley responds with annoyance or anger. Why? This is answered for us not in the game, but in the game files. In the first stop of the Rambley Railroad, there is a picture of Lloyd handing Rambley a piece of paper. In the files, this picture is named The Deed. This suggests Lloyd was the actual original mascot for Indigo Park. When Rambley came along and proved to be more popular, they slowly transferred the role to him, explaining it with this picture. That explains why Lloyd was the only one given a throwback plushie. It also explains the animosity between them. Lloyd was a shining star, now regulated to less and less appearances, as our character comments on in one of the collectibles, making him more loud and show-offish when they do occur. Rambley, however, is the opposite, in the spotlight now, but insecure about losing his new position. These characters seem to be afraid of being replaced, filling their roles perfectly even when it works against them, like we hear with Molly. It's an odd line delivery, so I didn't pick up on it immediately, but it does seem strange to include in your ride. Later, though, we hear mascot Molly repeat it, so we know it's important. It even seems like Finley was on his way to being ousted before the park was abandoned.
I hope you'll visit. I'm so lonely.
Oceanic Odyssey currently closed for repairs.
Heck, I wonder if Salem met a similar fate considering how little we see them around the park. These characters are afraid of being lost. Now I know what you're saying, beyond Rambley, none of the other characters seem to be AI. These are just recordings, it wouldn't matter to them, and you're right. But I do believe they're hints towards something that does matter. The mascots. They are at risk of being replaced if the park deems them worthless. That, my friends, is why I believe the true threat looming over Indigo Park is the park itself. They created these creatures. They are the ones who sat idly by as they were abused and neglected. They are the ones who pushed things until the animals got free and attacked everyone. And Rambley has been acting oblivious to the state of the park up to this point. That's why in the arcade game, Salem refers to removing the control on Molly as removing Rambley's friendship. Now we know he cares about his friends to some level. The collectibles say as much. I don't think he's a part of this. I don't think he's willingly working to keep them under control. I think he's afraid. And in that fear, he is ignoring things that are going on right in front of his face. He's ignoring the things happening to his friends. And I believe the deeper we go into the park, the more we will find about the awful things happening to these mascots, the awful things happening to the other characters. Rambley will have to confront things and make a choice. Will he be the hero, working with us to change things in the park for the better? Or will he ignore it all, pushing the park back into its old ways? So desperate to keep us here, he'll likely stand in the way of our escape, turning into a villain. Like I said, lots of speculation, especially on that last one, but it just lays out things so nicely I had to go into it. I can't wait for the next chapter to give us even more juicy details. Now, there were still a few hints I couldn't explain. That mascot voice line just sounds so strange and rehearsed, and I know that's intentional because the writing and voice work for this game is so masterful, but I just couldn't find a place to put it. There was also one final code on that last picture that I couldn't quite decipher. I filled in the blanks for what we had, but it's hard to make out some of the symbols. I believe it says first to release, second made. Given it's on the pictures with the mascot eggs, maybe it's saying Molly was the first mascot to be released, but only the second one created. Possibly mascot Rambley was the first. Hard to say. But that's enough for this video. Definitely more theory focused than the bye-bye one for my other videos, but I was just so excited for this game I had to talk about it. Plus, I loved the challenge of drawing myself in Rambley's style. I'm definitely going to do this for future videos. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, go and support the game if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Stay villainous, friends.
The power of the sun